So imagine you are standing in front of this massive, impossibly complex control board. And behind this board is basically the entirety of human knowledge.
Right. Every piece of text, data, code.
Yeah, essentially everything ever uploaded to the internet. But instead of, thousands of dials and switches to help you actually navigate this ocean of information, there is just one single blank text box.
Which is a completely disorienting paradigm when you think about it. I mean, for the entirety of computing history, we've navigated machines through very specific interfaces. They had defined limits. And now, well, the interface is simply whatever you can articulate in a blank field.
And that lack of boundaries is exactly where things go wrong for most people. Because you sit down, you type something in, and sometimes it feels like pure magic.
Oh, absolutely.
But other times, and if you are listening to this deep dive, you have absolutely experienced this, you get the most generic, robotic, unhelpful paragraph imaginable. Whether you're prepping for a huge corporate meeting or just asking a random question out of curiosity.
Right, which naturally leads people to just assume the model isn't advanced enough yet, or, they think it just doesn't know the answer.
But the reality is actually far more counterintuitive. The machine isn't broken. The issue is that the vast majority of us are approaching this blank text box with entirely the wrong mental framework. We are treating it like a search engine when it is actually something completely different.
Exactly. It's a total different beast.
So today, our core mission is to open the engine room. We are taking you from being a passive observer of AI to an active creator. We're going to deconstruct the actual mechanical reality of how these models process language, and we'll detail this massive mindset shift you have to make to stop getting those generic outputs. Plus, we're going to arm you with a specific battle-tested framework from our source materials called CROFTC to really engineer your way to professional-grade results.
And that mechanical reality is really the only place to start. If you don't understand how the model actually parses your text, then, well, any prompt engineering framework is just going to feel like a meaningless list of rules.
Yeah.
We really have to strip away the illusion that the machine is like reading your prompt the way a human would.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can tell the AI what to do, we really need to understand exactly how it thinks. So when I type a sentence into that text box, what is physically happening under the hood?
Well, the very first thing the model does is it basically shatters your sentence into pieces. It uses a process called tokenization. So a token can be a whole word, but actually, more often, it's just a piece of a word, like a syllable or even a single character.
Wait, really? So that it doesn't even see whole words?
Not always, no. If you type the word, say, unbelievable, the system might chop that up into unbelieve and able.
Okay, so it chops the text up, but how does it extract any meaning from those random fragments?
But turning them into math. Every single token is converted into what's called an embedding.
An embedding.
Yeah, an embedding is essentially a high-dimensional vector. So I want you to imagine this vast, multi-dimensional mathematical space. We're talking sometimes tens of thousands of dimensions here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's huge. And the AI assigns every single token a specific coordinate in that space based on its relationship to every other token it absorbed during its training data.
Wait, so it's not like a giant encyclopedia pulling up facts. It's more like a highly advanced game of multidimensional word association.
There's a great way to put it, yeah.
So words that frequently appear together or represent similar concepts, they are physically grouped closer together in this mathematical space.
Precisely. It's fascinating because in this space, if you take the vector for king minus the vector for man plus the vector for woman, mathematically, it lands almost exactly on the vector for queen.
That is wild.
Right. It is not looking up definitions in a dictionary. It is calculating the geometric distance between concepts.
If it's mapping the structural relationships between ideas like that, that explains why it can make such strange but brilliant connections across totally different fields. In the sources, there's this example where if I ask the AI, what are the conceptual similarities between an ant colony and a corporate management structure?
Right. It links them instantly.
Yeah, it immediately tells me both are decentralized adaptive systems shaped by local constraints. It connects insects and bankers because mathematically, the vectors for those concepts share structural patterns.
Exactly. That is the incredible power of a multidimensional semantic space. But, and this is a big, but it's also the exact mechanism behind the technology's biggest flaw. The fundamental goal of the AI is never to retrieve a fact.
Okay.
Its only goal is to predict the statistically most probable next token based on the patterns it learned. It is a prediction engine. It is not a database.
Wait, hold on. If it has processed, billions of documents, why can't I just explicitly command it in my prompt? Like, why can't I just type, do not hallucinate the legal citations in this summary? I'm setting a clear rule, right?
Because that fundamentally misunderstands what the machine actually is. You're treating it like a database query that can distinguish between a verified truth and a falsehood.
Ah,
And it simply can't.
it doesn't know the
It
difference.
doesn't even know what a fact or a citation is. It only knows that in legal text, a certain sequence of tokens, like say a V period followed by a year,
Mhm.
has a very high statistical probability of appearing next to a name. You cannot command a probability engine to be factual. You can only manipulate its context to favor accurate patterns.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so if it lacks a strong mathematical pattern for your specific question,
Yeah.
it doesn't just say, I don't know. It will simply generate the next most plausible sounding token.
Hmm.
And the result is a very confident, completely fabricated answer.
Which is exactly why AI hallucinates. That is honestly slightly terrifying because it means when the AI sounds the most authoritative, it might actually be relying on the weakest statistical pattern.
It's the inherent danger of a prediction engine.
Hmm.
And that fundamental mechanical reality, that's exactly why we have to completely change our psychology when we sit down at the keyboard.
Wow.
Because it operates on probability rather than, information retrieval. Typing a simple, vague Google-style query leaves the probability space way too wide.
You're just casting too big of a net.
Right, and you're going to get the most average generic token path possible.
Which brings us to the mindset shift. Because AI is a pattern matching prediction engine and not a search engine, using those simple queries just yields terrible results. To get real value, you must fundamentally shift your mindset from a user to an active operator.
Yes. Think about traditional software for a moment. It has fixed functions, like Excel computes formulas, Premiere renders video. You act as a user interacting with very predefined tools.
Mm.
AI, however, possesses fluid intelligence.
Fluid intelligence, meaning it doesn't have a single job.
Right, it has no fixed function. It is capable of entirely open-ended goals.
So, what does this all mean? Let's use an analogy. If I treat the AI like a vending machine I put in a coin, a short prompt, I hit enter, and I wait for my snack, I stay in that user mindset, I might type, write me a chapter about the French Revolution, and I just expect a finished product.
And you will receive a grammatically perfect, utterly soulless chapter. We can actually look at this through the lens of 3 layers of output quality.
Okay, let's hear them.
When you act as a vending machine user, you get layer 1, the surface layer. You get good grammar, correct spelling, basic readability.
And I feel like most people stop there. They see a coherent paragraph and they think, well, the magic trick worked.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if they push a bit harder, they might hit layer 2, which is structure. The output has decent organization, maybe logical flow, nice transitions. But where an operator wants to operate is layer 3, and that's insight.
Insight.
Right, this is where you get compelling decisions, nuanced trade-offs, really strong intellectual positions. This is where the real value lives.
But wait, how do we mechanically force a prediction engine to generate layer 3 insights if it has no inherent opinions or thoughts of its own?
By abandoning the idea that you are asking it a question and embracing the idea that you are building a thinking environment. An operator doesn't just say, write a chapter. An operator says, build a chapter production system. You are constructing a highly constrained context that forces the AI's probability engine into a very narrow, high-value corridor.
So the tool didn't change, the environment changed.
Exactly. You are not editing text.
Yeah.
You are forcing decisions into something that was generated without any. The environment shapes everything downstream.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It's like onboarding a new employee instead of just buying a snack from a machine. You give them a rich environment and specific goals, but how exactly do we construct that environment? Like, what are the actual levers we pull to narrow that probability space?
Well, we use a specific structural blueprint to speak the AI's language. We basically need to systematically constrain its vectors.
And this is where we introduce the Operator's Toolkit, the CROFTC Framework, CROFTC.
Right.
Let's break down exactly how each of these constraints manipulates the machine's behavior. We'll use this great example from the sources. Imagine we are an operator launching a startup that manufactures eco-friendly coffee cups, and we need copy for our new website.
Which is a very standard business use case, but one that usually just yields terrible, generic marketing speak.
Oh, completely. So we apply the framework. The C stands for context, the background. So we start our prompt with something like, we are a small startup based in Seattle launching a new eco-friendly coffee cup made from recycled mushroom fibers.
And mechanically, what you have just done there is profound. Without that single sentence, the AI's probability space is effectively infinite. I mean, it's pulling from all of human knowledge. But the moment you introduce startup, mushroom fibers, and coffee cup, you draw a tight mathematical boundary.
You're fencing it in.
Exactly. You immediately zero out billions of irrelevant linguistic patterns. The AI is no longer wandering the entire internet. Its token prediction is now heavily constrained to the intersection of business, sustainability, and material science.
That makes total sense. Next is R for role. We tell the AI who to be. So we might say, you are a ruthless, highly persuasive direct response marketing copywriter. But wait, let me push back on this for a second. Why do I need a role if I'm about to give it an objective anyway? Like, isn't telling it to write marketing copy basically the same as saying you are a marketer?
Not at all, actually. Assigning a highly specific role alters the attention weights of the model before it even begins to process the actual task. It's a layer 1 intervention.
What do you mean by attention weights?
So, persuasive direct response copywriter instantly changes the semantic neighborhood of the vocabulary it will access. If you just ask it to write copy, it might adopt an academic tone or a journalistic tone, maybe a casual blog tone. The role serves as a foundational filter for token selection right out of the gate.
Ah, okay. The O is objective, the primary goal. So generate 3 distinct value propositions for our landing page. Now, this one feels straightforward. We're just defining the destination vector, right?
It is, but the key here is bounding the task. Generate 3 distinct value propositions is a clear objective, but saying, write a landing page is not an objective. That's a wish.
Right. It's too vague.
Yeah, you have to define exactly what a successful completion looks like.
Got it. Then the F is form, the structure of the output. We might say, present them as a numbered list with a bolded hook followed by a 2-sentence explanation.
And specifying the form saves you from the frustration of wrestling with massive, unreadable blocks of text. You are mechanically bounding the generation length and the structural tokens. It forces the neural network to prioritize tokens related to formatting, like line breaks and bullet points. It visually organizes the thought process.
Okay, now for T, which is tone. Upbeat, slightly rebellious, and urgent. Now, tone has always felt a bit, I don't know, fluffy to me. Does telling a machine to be rebellious actually do anything functionally, or is it just a polite stylistic request?
Oh, it is a highly mechanical constraint. Think of the AI's vocabulary as this giant switchboard. When you specify a tone like rebellious and urgent, you are mathematically altering the weights of the next predicted tokens across the entire output.
So it's actively shifting probabilities.
Yes, you literally zero out the probability of it choosing formal connective tissue like furthermore or consequently. And simultaneously, you amplify the statistical likelihood of active dynamic verbs and shorter, punchier syntax. You aren't asking nicely. You're artificially weighting the dice.
Wow, that completely reframes how I think about adjectives in a prompt. Finally, we have C for conditions. These are the rules and limits, like negative constraints. So we say, under 50 words per proposition, do not use the words green, sustainable, or earth-friendly.
Right, conditions act as the hard guardrails. Language models are notorious for leaning on cliches, right? Because cliches, by definition, represent highly probable token sequences.
Oh, of course. They're the most mathematically common phrases.
Exactly. So by explicitly forbidding the most common industry buzzwords like sustainable, you force the model to explore less probable, but far more creative and insightful vector paths.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The CROFTC Framework context, role, objective, form, tone, conditions. It's a universal recipe. It translates to any medium. Like if you're using an AI image generator, form just becomes the aspect ratio or art style, right? Like a 16.9, 35 millimeter photograph. And tone becomes the lighting or mood. It's basically like handing a super smart assistant a perfectly detailed creative brief.
It is. And by providing that dense framework, CROFTC dramatically aids the AI's information retrieval process.
Yeah.
It forces the neural network to pull from highly relevant patterns rather than guessing, which directly reduces the chances of those hallucinations we talked about earlier.
Because we've left the model very little room to guess.
Exactly. But once you have the CROFTC framework down and you master creating that initial environment, you can actually push the AI's reasoning capabilities even further to handle really complex multi-step problems.
Right, let's move into those advanced operator techniques. The one that totally changes the game for complex logic is chain of thought prompting, or COT.
Yeah, chain of thought exploits the way the model reads its own output. Instead of just asking for a final answer, you explicitly prompt the AI to think step by step or outline your reasoning before concluding.
Let's test the mechanics of this. There's this classic example from the sources. Say I ask the AI a simple math word problem. Roger has 5 tennis balls. He buys 2 more cans. Each can has 3 tennis balls. How many does he have now? If I just ask for the answer straight up, it occasionally gets wrong. Why is that?
Because the model is trying to jump directly from the tokens in your prompt to the final token of the answer. The mathematical probability of it predicting 11 directly from that paragraph is relatively low because it requires multi-step internal inference. And these models naturally struggle with that.
So when I add the condition, think step by step, what physically changes in the engine room?
You force the model to generate intermediate tokens. So it writes out, Roger started with 5, he bought 2 cans of 3, so 2 times 3 is 6. Crucially, those new tokens it just generated are immediately fed back into the model's own context window.
Oh, I see.
They serve as mechanical stepping stones. The model now reads its own intermediate logic, which makes the probability of predicting 11 as the final token skyrocket. You are literally using the model's output to actively steer its subsequent predictions.
That is so cool. It's exactly like telling a math student to show your work. If they just guess the answer, they might get it wrong. But if they write out the algebra on the chalkboard, they catch their own mistakes. And as the operator, this brings total transparency. I can look the output and pinpoint exactly where the machine's logic branched off course.
And that transparency is vital. It allows you to maintain your role as the human in the loop. You are the ultimate arbiter of truth. The AI is just showing you its probabilistic work.
Right. But wait, what if the truth isn't in the model's training data at all? Like, what if I'm an operator working with highly confidential internal company documents that the AI has never seen? If I just paste a massive 500-page PDF into the prompt along with my CROFTC instructions, doesn't that just solve the problem?
Not exactly. It creates a new mechanical issue called attention dilution. Large language models have a context window, which is a strict limit on how many tokens they can hold in their active memory at once.
Yeah.
And even if a model has a massive context window capable of holding 500 pages, the neural network's attention mechanism tends to focus heavily on the very beginning and the very end of the
Key
prompt.
information in the middle gets blurry.
Yes, it's called the lost in the middle phenomenon.
So my actual instructions, my carefully crafted CROFTC prompt, gets buried under the weight of the document, and the AI loses the thread.
Exactly. And that is where retrieval augmented generation, or RGA, becomes essential. Briefly, RGA separates the database from the prompt. Before the AI even answers you, a separate retrieval system searches your 500-page PDF, extracts only the 2 or 3 paragraphs that are highly relevant to your objective, and injects just those specific snippets into the context window right alongside your prompt.
Okay, so instead of handing the AI an entire library and hoping it doesn't get distracted, you are handing it a single open textbook turned to the exact page it needs right before it speaks.
Precisely. It grounds the generation in factual, external data without overwhelming the attention weights.
That's brilliant. Now, whether you are implementing complex RGA pipelines or forcing chain of thought or just running a really solid CROFTC prompt, being an operator requires one final kind of unglamorous element, right? The feedback loop.
Yes, an operator never assumes the first output is the final product. It just doesn't work that way.
You have to continuously evaluate. You assess the output against your key performance indicators, your KPIs. If the AI hallucinates or if the tone is too formal, you don't just throw your hands up and say, well, the tool is useless.
No, you refine it. You adjust the parameters, you add a negative constraint to the conditions, you tighten the context, you iterate.
It is a continuous dance of calibration. Every failure of the model is just diagnostic data showing you where your prompt left the probability space too broad.
Exactly.
Well, we have covered a tremendous amount of mechanical ground today. We started by dismantling the illusion of the search engine, revealing the tokens, the vector spaces, and the probability distributions underneath it all.
And we realized that because it is a prediction engine, we have to fundamentally shift our mindset. We move from a passive user hoping for a good result to an active operator engineering a constrained thinking environment.
And we gave you the CROFTC framework context, role, objective, form, tone, conditions to actually build those environments alongside advanced logic forcing tools like chain of thought. But look, knowledge of these mechanisms is pretty useless if it just remains theoretical. So we have a challenge for you. Implement the 2-minute rule.
Yes. Spend just 2 minutes every day running a single prompt experiment. Use the CROFTC framework. Force the model to think step by step, like just a single variable, like just a tone, and watch how it structurally changes the output.
Treat the AI as a fluid thought partner, not a static magic 8-ball. If you do this daily, anticipating the machine's token logic will honestly become second nature. But I want to leave you with a provocative final thought from our sources to mull over. We spent this entire deep dive discussing how you must meticulously engineer the machine's environment to force it to think better. Human intuition is still superior to artificial intuition right now. But consider the inverse. When you spend hours a day actively collaborating with this alien fluid intelligence, an intelligence trained on the entirety of human knowledge, capable of drawing structural connections across disciplines we would never link on our own, you aren't just shaping its outputs.
You're absorbing its associative patterns.
Exactly. The ultimate consequence of mastering this technology might not just be that you get better marketing copy or faster research summaries. By constantly exposing yourself to an intelligence that operates without our natural cognitive boundaries, the intuition that's actually being rewired might be your own. Thank you so much for joining us on this Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.